number 1.
So
Hey,
we're good to start.
that's pretty
whenever.
professional.
Yeah, and we're good to start whenever. But anything before, you just want to. Anything you want me to make sure that I cover? Anything
Well,
other than what we had talked about?
yeah, kind of your form there. I guess we can start off with some of the things that's on that. That looks pretty good.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, like basically, where I was born and some
Sure,
of that sort of thing.
Sure. Well, I'll just begin by reading the part that I got to read to start it.
Okay.
And you want it to be David Parker, right? David, not Dave.
Yeah, let's use David.
Okay.
Most of my family refers to me as David, but
Okay,
amongst friends is kind of a nickname, and I go by Dave.
sure.
Either one.
Okay, well then I will just give that opening and ask you when and where you were born, and we'll just run from there.
Okay.
So, y'all good?
I'm good.
Okay. My name is Anthony Coombs, and I am interviewing David Parker for the Veterans History Project in partnership with the Office of Congressman Blake Moore and the Davis Catalyst Center. Today is November 18th, 2022, and we are holding this interview at the Catalyst Center in Kaysville, Utah. David, first, thank you for taking the time to be here with us today and share your story.
Thank you.
When and where were you born?
I was born in Idaho Falls, Idaho. And the reason for that is because my father was in the Army at the time, and my mother was pregnant, and she was staying in Idaho Falls with her parents while my father was serving during World War II in the Army. He wasn't overseas. He was actually in Army intelligence in Washington, D.C. in the Baltimore area. But I was born in Idaho, and as soon as my father was out of the Army, he built a home in West Jordan, Utah, and I pretty much started my childhood there living in West Jordan.
Okay. So you grew up with a father that had served in the military. Did you have other family members that were members of the military?
Quite a few, actually. I had a grandfather that served during World War I. That was on my mother's side, Ted Maynard. And I don't know an awful lot about his military history, but I did hear that he was trained to be a sniper in the Army, and he was actually on his way over to Europe to fight in World War I when the armistice was signed, and they turned around and came back. So I guess he kind of saved his bacon there. So,
Sure.
and then my father, this is kind of a tragic story, but my father's oldest brother, Ronald Parker, he was actually killed in World War II. He was assigned to a P-38 squadron. It was a reconnaissance squadron. I think it was the 38th Reconnaissance Squadron or something like that. And his whole squadron was, or most of it, was on a transport ship in a convoy going over to North Africa. And the ship was, the convoy was attacked by German torpedo bombers, and one of the torpedo bombers hit his ship. It was the Paul Hamilton, the SS Paul Hamilton. And the ship just completely blew up and wiped out everyone on the ship. He was never found, but I know it was kind of devastating to the family, especially my grandmother. She was pretty devastated by that, and she was always talking about being a Gold Star mother, where she had a son that was lost during World War II. His next brother down, Udell Parker, don't know too much about his service, but I heard that he was served in North Africa, and I believe they said he served under George Patton, General Patton. And then my father, as I just mentioned, he tried to enlist to begin with, but because he had a hernia, they wouldn't take him in the Army at the time. So then he ended up getting married to my mother, and then he went and had an operation to repair that hernia. Well, I guess after he got the hernia repaired, here they came with a draft notice and took him into the Army. but he didn't serve overseas. He was stateside in Army intelligence.
You know what he did specifically?
I don't know exactly what he was doing there at the time, but he didn't really talk about that an awful lot. On my mother's side, she had a brother that served in the Pacific on about 3 different aircraft carriers. And then she had some other younger brothers that served in the Navy, not during wartime. And then one brother that served in the Air Force.
Okay. And so, growing up, were you aware of this military tradition in your family? Was it something that was talked
Pretty
about?
much,
Or?
but they didn't really talk about it an awful lot. There was a few little stories here and there. I know my uncle on my mother's side, I guess he was on, I think it was the aircraft carrier, the Wasp. They said that he missed when they sunk that aircraft carrier. He just happened to have been thrown into brig or something, and he, for getting into mischief, and so he missed out on big. I think it was the Baby Block Island was another one they mentioned that he was assigned on, but and some of those were actually sunk, I guess. But I guess he was kind of a character. I know he got thrown in the brig a couple of times, they say.
What was life like, though, growing up in Utah?
It was pretty good, actually. I remember early childhood growing up in West Jordan, just a little house that was just along Redwood Road. It goes through West Jordan. Went to West Jordan Elementary School and West Jordan Junior High School up to the 8th grade. Then my father built a new home over in the Parker Ranch that was over in the Benyon, Taylorsville area, along with some of his siblings that also built homes there. And I moved there when I was about 11 years old and was raised basically there. Went after moving to that area, I changed junior high schools to Valley Junior High School in the 9th grade that's in the Granger, West Valley area, and then went to Granger High School and graduated from Granger High School in 1964.
Okay. And so you graduate, and really, Vietnam is not on anybody's radar. I mean, within the American public, right? Are you?
No, not at that point. I don't recall too much during graduation. There was issues earlier on with the Cuban Missile Crisis, with President Kennedy, and all of the worried, about a nuclear war with Russia and all of that. But not too much. But after graduation, I did hear rumblings about the Gulf of Tonkin incidents. I think it was, I forget what the ship was called that supposedly was attacked out there, but I'd hear about it on the radio. Didn't really think too much about it, how it was going to affect my life, but boy.
What was your understanding of the Cold War? How did you view that?
It was kind of a well, as a young kid, you don't really think too much about that, but you do worry about it. You hear all of these problems with the possibility of nuclear war, especially with the Cuban Missile Crisis and things like that. They would sometimes give you, ideas about how to protect yourself if you are attacked, which, people building fallout shelters and all that sort of thing, but it really wasn't anything that got me too upset or anything like that. I guess that's how things go.
Yeah. Well, how did you end up joining the military?
Well, I graduated from Granger High School, and I started working for a fellow that was that lived in the neighborhood, and he owned a metal salvage yard, and I worked with him quite a bit with cutting scrap steel with cutting torches and things like that, and we'd make trips to California sometimes with steel products, or there was a it was a school lunch program that would have all these big gallon cans that they would empty out for the school lunch program, and he would collect those, load them up in a big semi truck, and we'd haul them down to California, and they'd use them in the nurseries to put put plants in the nurseries and all that sort of thing. So I got to do a little bit of travel with him, and he was an ex-Marine.
Hey, when did he serve?
He served during the Korean War.
Okay.
And in fact, of course, this was about the time that I had just been graduated from high school, was trying to figure out, I wanted to get into college or something like that. I did have a little bit of pressure from some of the folks in the LDS church there that was saying, well, why don't you go on a mission and you can maybe avoid being drafted. Because after my draft physical and all that sort of thing, I was right up there at, I think it was an A1 or 1A or something like that for draft. So I figured that, boss, I'm probably going to end up getting drafted pretty quickly, because some of my older friends were already getting drafted into the Army.
So that quickly after graduating high school, you started?
Yeah, it was happening pretty fast. So I thought, boy, I don't have much time to think about what the future is going to be. And I mentioned to my boss at the time that I think I'll go in and talk to some recruiters, because looks like I'm going to be drafted if I don't enlist or something. So I think I'll go in and talk to the Navy. And he said, I'll go with you. He says, and he said, maybe after we talk to them, he says, let's go over and talk to the Marines too, I'm thinking, I don't know about that. Prior to that, I might mention, while I was still in high school, I had an Air Force recruiter that was just ruthless. He was on my tail all the time wanting me to join the Air Force. And at that time, I really wasn't, thinking that much about military service. I thought, well, I'm going to try and get into college or something. And so I just kind of pushed off that Air Force recruiter, and I didn't even want to see him anymore. He actually made me a little mad because he kept bothering me. But then when I went to see the Navy recruiter, if I recall, there really wasn't, they had so many people that was trying to go in the Navy, I guess to avoid actually being in Vietnam on the ground, that they really didn't have much of anything to offer or open. So we did go over and talk to the Marine recruiter, and he said that I guess he looked at some of my test scores during high school and aptitude tests or whatever. I forget what they call all that stuff. But he said, oh, your grades were good enough that we can offer you an aviation guarantee, aviation school guarantee. You just have to enlist for 4 years. And I thought, well, that sounds pretty good. I like aviation. I was pretty cool on, in fact, my uncles and my father, they were aviation advocates too. And so I ended up enlisting in the Marine Corps. I said, that's great, I can get some schooling. So that's how I ended up going into the Marine Corps.
And were you, right after that, did you head off to basic training? Or?
No, not right away. This was probably in, well, I graduated in '64. I forget exactly when I went into the recruiter, probably late '64, early '65. But during '65, my boss that had the salvage yard, both of us actually ended up getting jobs on a construction crew, Jacobson Construction, and we worked as on construction, and I actually worked on building the sewage treatment plant that is in North Salt Lake, and also worked that summer in at the Phillips 66 refinery, building that there, the one in Woods Cross, prior to going into the Marine Corps. But then I actually had it set up to where